Hi, I'm Marigold, and 12 months ago my own father looked me in the eye and called me a thief in front of the entire family. My brother stood behind him, arms folded, trying not to smile. My mother wouldn't even leave the kitchen. By the end of that night, I was on a Greyhound out of Hartford with $500 in my pocket and a duffel bag that smelled like the laundry detergent from a home I'd never sleep in again. They thought I'd come crawling back within a month. They thought I beg. Instead, I'm sitting in a corner office in downtown Austin, signing paperwork for a company they'll read about in the Wall Street Journal next week. And tonight, for the first time since they threw me away, I'm going to walk back through that front door. They have no idea what's coming. Let me back up. I was the middle kid. Not the oldest, not the baby, just Marigold, the one who covered hospital shifts so my parents could fly to my brother's swim meets, the one who paid her own way through nursing school while Beckett got a brand new Range Rover for his 21st birthday. That was just how things ran in our house, and I'd stopped fighting it sometime around when I turned 20. You can't argue someone into loving you the same. I learned that early. The night it happened, I came home from a 16-hour shift in the ER at Hartford General. My scrubs still had a smear of someone else's blood on the cuff. All I wanted was a shower and the leftover lasagna my mom had texted me about that afternoon. I unlocked the back door and stepped into the kitchen, and right away I knew something was wrong. The house was too quiet. My mother, Lenora, had the dishwasher running, which she only ever did when she didn't want to hear what was being said in the next room. That was her tell. I walked into the dining room, and there they were. My father, Hollis, was at the head of the table, hands folded over a manila envelope like he was about to deliver a verdict. My brother Beckett was leaning against the wall in a polo shirt and chinos, the way he always stood when he wanted to look casual but was actually paying attention to every word. My sister-in-law Whitney sat on the love seat in the corner, scrolling her phone. She didn't even look up when I came in. "Sit down, Marigold," my father said. I didn't. "What's going on?" I said. "Sit down." I sat. I was too tired to fight before I even knew what the fight was about. Hollis slid the envelope across the table toward me. Inside were printouts, bank statements from the Halloran Family Foundation, the small charitable trust my father had set up years ago to look generous on his contractor's license renewal forms. The trust did real work. Technically, it funded a scholarship for kids of construction workers in the New Haven area, but it also wrote off most of our family's tax burden, and my father guarded those accounts like they were the crown jewels. I flipped through the pages. There were 3 wire transfers highlighted in yellow, each one for around $24,000, all going to a numbered account I'd never seen before, all dated within the last 6 months. "I don't understand," I said. My father's voice was very quiet. "Don't insult me, Marigold. I'm not. I genuinely don't know what I'm looking at." Beckett spoke up from the wall. "Dad's foundation got audited last week. Those withdrawals don't have any matching documentation. The accountant traced the authorizations back to your login." "Login?" "I haven't logged into the foundation account in." I stopped. I had logged into it. Once. Last spring, when my mother asked me to download a tax form she needed for some paperwork. She'd written her password down for me on a Post-it. I'd done it in 5 minutes and then forgotten about it. I told them that. Beckett shook his head, slow and disappointed, like a dad in an after-school special. "Mari, come on. $72,000? You really think we're not going to notice that?" I didn't take it. My father didn't even look at me. He was looking at a water stain on the ceiling like it was personally offending him. "We've already verified the IP address," he said. "It pings to your apartment on Asylum Avenue. There's no one else it could be." Dad, look at me. I share that Wi-Fi with 3 other people. I'm subletting from a girl named Priya. There are travel nurses in and out of that place every other week. Anyone could—" "Stop," he held up a hand. "I'm not doing this with you. I'm not having you tell me lies in my own house." I looked at my mother, who had finally come in from the kitchen. She was wiping her hands on a dish towel over and over like she could rub the skin off her palms. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom, tell him you know I wouldn't. Lenora opened her mouth, closed it, looked at my father. That was when I knew. Not just that I was being thrown out. I'd known that the second I'd seen the envelope. I knew that she had already decided whose side she was on, and it wasn't mine. It had probably never been mine. You have until tomorrow morning to pack what you can carry, my father said. I don't want you in this house another night. You're kicking me out. I'm protecting this family from someone who would steal from a children's scholarship fund. I started to laugh. It just came out of me. Not because anything was funny, but because the situation was so outrageous, I didn't have any other reaction available. Dad, I work 70 hours a week. I make $34 an hour. I have $8,000 in savings I worked 5 years for. Why on earth would I steal from a scholarship fund? Beckett, behind me, maybe you got greedy. Maybe nursing isn't paying what you thought it would. I turned around to look at him. Really look at him. My brother, 3 years older than me, who hadn't held a job for more than 14 months since he graduated college, who lived in the guest house behind my parents' place rent-free, who'd consulted for our father's construction company for years without a clear job description. Beckett, whose new wife Whitney had just gotten a Birkin bag for their first anniversary. And I knew the way you know when you smell smoke in a house that's supposed to be empty. Beckett, I said. My voice was very calm. Where did you get the money for Whitney's bag? The room went very still. Whitney looked up from her phone for the first time. Excuse me? I'm sorry, I'm asking my brother a question. Beckett's jaw tightened. You don't get to come in here and start. It's a $30,000 bag, Beckett. I looked it up because Whitney made sure to tell everyone what it cost. Where did you get the money? That is none of your goddamn business, Marigold. My father stood up. He'd never raised a hand to any of us, but the way he rose out of that chair was the closest he'd ever come. That is enough. Get out of my house. Dad, I'm telling you, I said, get out. His voice cracked the window glass, or it felt like it did. The room rang. My mother put her hand to her mouth and walked back into the kitchen. The dishwasher kept humming. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I made them work. I walked past Beckett, past Whitney, who was now watching me with the kind of polite horror people reserve for car accidents on the freeway. At the doorway, I turned around. For the record, I said, I didn't do it. Beckett, without missing a beat, good luck with that, sweetheart. That word. Sweetheart. He'd never called me sweetheart in his life. He said it the way you'd say it to a waitress you were about to stiff on a tip. Light, mocking, with his eyes already moving past me to whatever was on his phone. I packed a duffel that night, not even a full one. I left half my clothes, all of my books, the framed photo of my grandmother that had been on my dresser since I was 13. I didn't trust myself to take anything that mattered, because if I took it, I might cry, and if I cried, I wasn't sure I could stop. My father had left an envelope on the kitchen counter on my way out, $500 bills in it, a post-it stuck to the front. For the bus. Don't contact your mother. That was it. That was what I was worth to him after 26 years. 5 crisp bills and a post-it that didn't even have my name on it. Beckett was waiting on the porch when I came out with my bag. He had a cigarette in his hand, even though he didn't smoke. I think he was just trying to look like a man in a movie, you know? He said, "You've always had this victim thing. It's exhausting." I walked past him. Hey, Mari. Hey, where you gonna go, huh? Back to your sad little roommate apartment? Hartford ain't that big, sweetheart. We'll see you at Stop and Shop next week. I kept walking. Good luck losing, Marigold. That's the one that stuck. Not good luck out there. Good luck losing. Like he'd been saving the lineup. Like he'd penned the rhythm of it in his head before I came home. I walked 7 blocks to the Greyhound station in a drizzle that turned into actual rain by the time I got there. I bought a ticket south because south was the cheapest direction on the board. The bus was headed to Austin, Texas with a transfer in Nashville. I had never been to either of those cities in my life. I sat down on the bench inside the terminal and waited 4.5 hours for the bus to board, and during those 4.5 hours I did not cry once. I think I was too tired, or too angry. Or maybe I was already starting to become whoever I needed to become next, and that person didn't have time for tears yet. My phone buzzed once, around 2 a.m., a text from an unknown number. I knew it was Whitney before I opened it. She was the only person in that house slick enough to text from a burner. "You should have stayed quiet. Hope it was worth it." I deleted it. I deleted her contact, my brother's contact, my father's contact, my father's contact. I kept my mother's. I don't know why. I think a part of me still believed she'd call. She didn't. Austin in August is something you have to experience to understand. It's the kind of heat that makes your bones feel soft. I got off the bus at the downtown terminal with $382 left after the ticket and the Nashville layover, no plan, no contacts, and a nursing license that wasn't valid in Texas yet. I found a women's shelter on the east side that took me in for 2 weeks while I figured out my next move. I'd never been in a shelter before. I'd seen them from the outside, picking up patients who'd been brought into the ER. I'd never imagined I'd be on a cot in one. The shame of it was worse than the fear. Every night I lay there listening to the air conditioner rattle and thinking, this is what they wanted. This is exactly where they wanted me to end up. But I had a thing going for me that my family never bothered to notice. I am extremely good at being underestimated. I'd been doing it for 26 years, so when one of the shelter caseworkers, a woman named Theodora, who I am going to love until the day I die, asked me what I did for a living, and I told her, she made one phone call. 3 days later, I was working overnight shifts as a contract nurse at a free clinic in South Austin. They paid in cash for the first month while my Texas licensure was being expedited. $28 an hour. Not great. But it was a chair and a desk and a name tag. And after where I'd been, it was a whole new world. The free clinic is where I met Imani Boateng. I want to say that right here on the record, because nothing else in my life would have happened without her. Imani was a 34-year-old internal medicine resident moonlighting at the clinic to pay down her med school debt. She was the smartest person I had ever been within 10 feet of, and she was also kind, which is the rarest combination of qualities a brilliant person can have. It was Imani who noticed, during a long Wednesday shift, that I was building a spreadsheet on my laptop during downtime. She asked what it was. I told her I was tracking the same 15 or 20 patients who kept coming back to the clinic for the same 3 or 4 issues: uncontrolled diabetes, hypertension, asthma, things that should have been managed by a primary care doctor but weren't, because these people didn't have one. I was trying to figure out how many ER visits we could have prevented if someone had just called these patients every 2 weeks to check in. Imani looked at the spreadsheet for a long time. Then she said, "Mari, this is a company." I laughed. "It's a spreadsheet." "No, this is a company." I laughed. "It's a spreadsheet." "No, this is a company." This is what concierge medicine looks like for poor people. There are venture firms in this city that would lose their minds over this. I didn't believe her. But she believed it enough for both of us. For 5 months, Imani and I worked on it after our shifts. We sat in her apartment in East Austin eating takeout, building out a model for a low-cost telehealth and check-in service designed for uninsured and underinsured patients with chronic conditions. We called it Steadyline. I came up with the name. It was something my grandmother used to say. "You hold the steady line, Mari girl. Don't let anybody knock you off it." In February, Imani made me put on a blazer I'd bought at Goodwill for $14 and walk into a coffee meeting with a partner from a small Austin healthcare venture fund. His name was Desmond Park. He had a beard you could lose a pencil in, and he listened to my entire pitch without interrupting once. When I was done, he asked me 3 questions. The third one was, "How much do you need?" I had practiced this. $800,000 for a seed round to hire 4 people and build out the platform. He said, "I'm going to introduce you to my partners. Don't take any other meetings this week." 6 weeks later, Steadyline closed a $3.2 million seed round led by Park's firm, with a healthcare-focused fund out of Houston coming in for half of it. I held 38% of the company. Imani held 31%. Our first employee was Theodora's daughter, who'd been laid off from a medical billing company in May. We hired her as our patient coordinator. I want to be honest about something here. The day the wire hit my personal account, the day I had real money for the first time in my life, money that was mine, not borrowed, not earned by the hour, I did not feel triumphant. I felt almost nothing. I sat in the parking lot of a Whataburger off South Lamar in my used Hyundai Elantra, and I stared at the number on my phone screen for about 10 minutes, and the only thing I could think was, I wonder if Dad is having a good day today. Isn't that something? The first thing I thought of when I made it was him. That's the part nobody tells you about being kicked out. You don't stop loving them. You just stop being willing to die for them. It was Imani who, 8 months after the wire transfer, said the words that started the rest of this story. Mari, you need to go home. I told her no. She said, I'm not saying forgive them, I'm saying you need to look them in the eye one time as the person you actually are. Otherwise, you'll carry them around forever. I sat on that for 2 weeks. And then my mother, who had not contacted me in 14 months, sent me a single email. The subject line was, Family Reunion. The body said, Your father is being honored at the Hartford Chamber Foundation Gala next month. The whole family will be there. I hope you can come. Mom, that was it. No apology. No how are you, not even my name. But she had given me something better than an apology. She had given me a venue. I flew into Bradley International on a Saturday afternoon in October. I took a town car from the airport because I could. I checked into the Goodwin Hotel downtown because I could. I wore a charcoal suit and a cream silk blouse that cost more than my father's first car, and I stood in front of the mirror in my hotel room and I did not recognize the woman looking back at me. She looked steady. That was the word. Steady. The gala was at the Hartford Club. I had been there exactly once in my life, for my parents' 30th anniversary, where I had served as a glorified greeter for my mother's friends. Now I was walking up the front steps as a guest with an investor of mine from Boston, a man named Cyrus Whitfield who sat on the board of 3 different healthcare nonprofits, including, as fate would have it, one that had been a quiet observer of my father's foundation for years. I had told Cyrus everything on the flight up. He had listened in the careful way that very rich men listen when they smell something interesting. By the time we landed, he had made 2 phone calls and texted me an address for a forensic accountant in West Hartford who, he said, owes me a Saturday. We walked into the gala at 7:14 p.m. My mother saw me first. She was standing near the bar, holding a glass of white wine, and her face when she registered who I was did something I will remember for the rest of my life. It wasn't joy, it wasn't relief. It was fear, fast and clean, before she got her smile back on. Marigold, she breathed. You came. You invited me. Yes, I did. She glanced over my shoulder. And this is Cyrus Whitfield. He's on the board at the Lyceum Foundation in Boston. He came with me because we have some questions about Dad's accounts. Her smile froze. I will say this for my mother. She had been a society wife for 35 years, and she did not lose composure easily. She steered us toward an empty table in the corner with the same hand she'd used to steer me through every uncomfortable conversation of my childhood, and she said, Honey, this is a celebration. Whatever it is, can it wait until— No, I said. It really can't. My brother arrived 10 minutes later. He had Whitney on his arm, and she was wearing earrings that had to be 3 carats each. When Beckett saw me, his face did something very specific. He smiled. He smiled like a man who's just been handed an unloaded gun and isn't sure yet whether it's still empty. Mari, he said, all charm. Mom said you might come. You look great, actually. Thank you. So do you, Beckett. Those are nice cufflinks. New? These? Oh, yeah. They look like the Cartier ones in the window at West Farms. $2,000 a pair, I think. His smile tightened. Where's Dad? I said. Up at the head table. He's getting honored, Mari. Try not to make this weird. Beckett, I'm not going to make this weird. Beckett, I'm not going to make this weird. I came back to do something good for the family. I'm hoping you'll feel the same way once we talk. Whitney's eyes flicked between us. She was the smartest one in their marriage, and I could see her doing the math. We did not get a chance to talk privately because the gala was already moving toward the main speeches. My father was given a plaque for 20 years of service to the greater Hartford community by a county commissioner whose campaign my dad had bankrolled 4 years running. Hollis went up to the podium in his tux and he gave a 6-minute speech about legacy and stewardship and the values we pass down to our children. My mother dabbed at her eyes during the part about children. Beckett looked at his phone twice. When he sat down to applause, I stood up. I walked to the podium. The MC, who didn't know who I was, tried to stop me. Cyrus, behind me, in his quiet Boston voice said, "She's family. She has remarks." I took the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Marigold Halloran. I'm Hollis's daughter. Some of you knew me when I was younger. I see Mrs. Pendergast in the back. Hi, Carol. But most of you probably haven't seen me in about a year. There's a reason for that, and I want to take a minute of your evening to share it with you, because I think it bears on what we're celebrating tonight." The room got very quiet. My father's face, from the head table, was doing a thing. A little over a year ago, my father accused me of stealing $72,000 from the Halloran Family Foundation, the same foundation that has been honored tonight for its community service. He kicked me out of the family home with $500 and told me not to contact my mother again. My brother Beckett, who is sitting at table 4, told me, and I quote, "Good luck losing." Whitney had gone the color of paper. Beckett was halfway out of his seat. I have spent the last 14 months in Austin, Texas, building a healthcare company. We just closed our seed funding. We provide care to over 4,000 uninsured patients in the greater Austin area, and I'm very proud of that work. But I came back tonight because something has been bothering me for 14 months, and I think the people in this room deserve to hear it. I looked directly at my father. "Dad, I didn't take that money. I want you to know that I've spent some of my own resources over the last 6 weeks hiring a forensic accountant to look at the foundation's records. He's a very good accountant. His name is Mr. Whitfield's friend, and I'd be happy to introduce anyone here to him. What he found is that the $72,000 that went missing was wire transferred to a numbered offshore account in Belize. The account is held in the name of a shell company called Halloran Strategic Consulting, LLC. The signatory on the shell company is Beckett Halloran. Someone in the back of the room said, "Oh my God." I kept going. There are also approximately $340,000 in additional withdrawals from the foundation over the past 4 years that we have traced to the same shell company. I bring this up tonight not because I want my brother to be prosecuted, although I think that is a separate conversation, but because the foundation has been receiving matching donations from corporate sponsors based on its disbursement record. Those sponsors include some of the people in this room. They deserve to know where their money has actually been going. I set the microphone down on the podium. I did not raise my voice once. I did not shake. I did not cry. I walked down off the stage and back to my table, and Cyrus stood up and pulled my chair up for me, and the entire room sat in a silence so complete I could hear the ice melting in someone's glass. My father stood up at the head table. He looked at me from across the room, and for the first time in my entire life, I watched my father not know what to do. He didn't speak. He just sat back down. It was Beckett who broke. He stood up so fast, his chair tipped over backward. "She's lying. She's making this up. Dad, tell them she's lying." But my father was looking at his plate. My mother was looking at her hands. Whitney had already picked up her purse. I will skip the next 4 weeks because they were ugly and slow and full of attorneys. The foundation was placed under independent audit. 2 of the corporate sponsors pulled their funding immediately. The state attorney general's office opened an inquiry. And 3 months later, my brother was indicted on federal wire fraud and tax evasion charges, because once you move money through a Belizean shell company, you have crossed about 6 lines you cannot uncross. My father was not charged personally, but he resigned as president of his own construction company under pressure from his board. The Hartford Chamber rescinded his honor. My mother filed for legal separation in March. Whitney left Beckett before the indictment came down. She kept the Birkin. I did not gloat. I want to say that because it would be easy to. I did not gloat, but I also did not lift a finger to help. When my mother called me, crying, 3 days after the gala, I let it go to voicemail. When my father sent a letter through his attorney offering a sit-down to clear the air, I had my own attorney decline. When Beckett's lawyer reached out to ask whether I would consider providing a character reference at sentencing, I laughed for about 40 seconds and then I wrote one sentence. I have no character information to share about my brother that would be useful to the court. The only one I saw, in the end, was my mother. She came down to Austin in April. She didn't tell me she was coming. She just sent a text from the airport. I met her at a coffee shop on South Congress because I did not want her in my apartment. She looked old. I'd never thought of my mother as old before. She was 61, but she'd always had this glossy society wife thing going, and that night in October had taken it out of her. She sat across from me with her hands wrapped around a cup of tea, and she said, I should have spoken up that night. I knew. You knew? I suspected. I'd seen things in Beckett's email. I'd seen the bag, Mari. I'm not stupid. I knew there was no way he had the money for that bag. And you let Dad kick me out. I was scared of your father. I have been scared of your father for 35 years. I sat with that for a minute. It would have been a lie to say I felt nothing. I felt a lot of things. But the main thing I felt was tired. Mom, I said, I'm not going to forgive you tonight. I might never. But I want you to know that I'm not angry anymore either. I'm just done. I'm done waiting for you to be the mother I needed. I built someone else's mother into my life. Her name is Theodora. She lives in East Austin. I see her every Sunday. She made me dinner the night I closed my funding round. You weren't there. You won't be there for the next thing either. That's okay. That's just what it is, she cried. I let her. I didn't reach across the table. When she left, she said, I'm proud of you, Marigold. I said, I know you are, but I didn't do it for you to be proud. It is now 12 months after the gala. Steadyline serves 11,000 patients across 4 Texas cities. We are about to close a Series A. Imani and I are going to be on the cover of a small healthcare magazine next month, which is hilarious because we still eat takeout in her living room at least twice a week. Theodora has a corner office at our company. Her daughter runs the patient coordination team. My grandmother's photo is on my desk. I went back to Hartford and I got it. I'm not going to tell you that I've made peace. That would be a lie. There are mornings I wake up, and the first thought in my head is Beckett never apologized, and I have to put that thought down before I can pour my coffee. There are nights I lie awake wondering whether I should have just stayed quiet and let the foundation rot from the inside until it ate itself. Whether the public park, the gala, the microphone was about justice, or whether it was just about me wanting them to see me, finally, for 1 minute, as someone they couldn't dismiss. I don't have a clean answer. I think it was both. But here's what I'll tell you, and this is the only thing I really came here to say tonight. When somebody you love decides you're the villain in their story, you have 2 options. You can spend the rest of your life trying to write yourself back into the role of the hero in their eyes. That is a long road and it doesn't end where you want it to. Or you can close their book and write your own. Different setting. Different cast. You're still the protagonist. The view is better. I closed their book. I didn't burn it. I just put it down. It's on a shelf somewhere. Maybe one day I'll take it down again and read a chapter. Maybe I won't. The girl who got on a Greyhound out of Hartford with $500 and a duffel bag, I think about her sometimes. She was so scared. She thought she was losing everything. She didn't know yet that what she was actually doing was leaving. So if you're listening to this and you're somewhere in the middle of your own version of that night, if your family has decided you're the problem, if the people who were supposed to protect you handed you a ticket out the door, I want you to hear me very carefully. You are not losing. you are leaving, those are not the same thing. One of them is the worst thing that has ever happened to you. The other one is the first day of the rest of your life. You'll know which one it is in about a year. I'll see you on the other side. Looking back now, 12 months out from the gala, I think the strangest part isn't that my family broke. It's that they broke exactly along the lines they'd already drawn, decades before any of this started. My father, Hollis, had spent 30 years teaching us that the loudest voice in the room was the right one. My brother, Beckett, learned that lesson and then weaponized it. My mother, Lenora, learned to go quiet so the room could stay calm. And I learned, somewhere along the way, that being quiet wasn't the same thing as being safe. The night they threw me out wasn't a betrayal that came from nowhere. It was the bill coming due on a system that had been running in our house since I was old enough to count. That's the part I want anybody listening to really sit with. Cause and effect doesn't take a break for family. Beckett didn't wake up one morning and decide to steal $72,000 from a children's scholarship fund. He'd been getting away with smaller things his whole life because nobody ever made him pay. My father didn't kick me out because he honestly believed I was a thief. He kicked me out because admitting his son was the thief would have broken something inside him he wasn't strong enough to face. And my mother didn't stay silent at that dining room table because she didn't love me. She stayed silent because she'd been silent for 35 years and didn't know how to be anything else by then. Every one of them was harvesting a crop they'd been planting their entire adult lives. I planted something too, and I want to be honest about that. The day I walked into that Hartford gala with a microphone and a forensic accountant, I wasn't there as a victim. I was there because I had spent 14 months becoming a person who could walk into that room. That didn't happen by accident either. It happened because I worked 16-hour shifts at a free clinic when I was tired. It happened because I let a stranger named Theodora feed me dinner when I had no one. It happened because I sat in Imani's apartment on a Tuesday night and said yes when she told me my spreadsheet was a company. Character isn't something you have, it's something you build, one small decision at a time, usually when nobody is watching. So if you're sitting somewhere tonight wondering whether you have what it takes to walk away from people who don't see you, I want you to know that the answer is yes, but only if you're willing to do the slow work. Walking away isn't the hard part. The hard part is becoming someone worth walking toward. Be honest, even when it costs you. Be patient with yourself when you're scared. Be willing to let go of the people who confused control for love. The view from the other side of that decision is something I cannot describe to you in words. You have to walk there yourself. But I promise you it exists, and I promise you that the person waiting for you on the other side is somebody you're going to be proud to know.